ESPN analyst Bill Barnwell joining us right now on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. And Bill, we did bring you on to talk about the NFL. You have a ton of insight, obviously. And while we do want to eventually have a conversation about the Seahawks, we're going to start with a conversation that you're having about Dak Prescott. This is already fascinating, even as a Seahawks fan, to see what the Cowboys might do here. What kind of conundrum do they find themselves in?
It's a real financial conundrum and a product of Jerry Jones maybe being a little too patient to get these contracts done. The market for these guys only goes up typically, and he's in a position now where he has 3 stars in Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb, all of whom are coming eligible for an extension, with Dak and Lamb being free agents after this year, Parsons the year after that. They made about $48 million on their last deals, their current contracts. They're going to go up to about $130 million combined if the Cowboys go and sign all 3 of those players to extension. So you're looking at, an $80, $82, $85 million difference, and that's going to hurt you elsewhere on the roster. So there's a real question in Dallas now maybe about whether they can win paying 3 players, 3 good players, but 3 players, nearly half of the salary cap. It's just a real conundrum for whether you can build a roster and win that way.
So, Bill, we just saw Trevor Lawrence reset the quarterback market, or at least go to the top of the quarterback market. Dak Prescott wanting a new contract. Do you expect him to get a payday that surpasses Lawrence on his next deal?
I do. The only reason it wouldn't happen would be if Dak Prescott gave the Cowboys a discount, which, I don't know why he would. He might. I think stranger things have happened, but from Dak's perspective, he has a lot more leverage than Trevor Lawrence because of where he is relative to free agency. But Trevor Lawrence, obviously, he was a young player in the 4th year of his career. Still 4 years of team control, really, with a year of his rookie deal, a 5th-year option, and then 2 franchise tags away from free agency. That's going to influence how that deal gets done. Dak Prescott, if the Cowboys don't sign him, he has a no-tag clause. He will be a free agent next March. And so because of that, he has so much leverage. He has more leverage than any other player in football when it comes to getting a deal done because realistically, there's not been many examples of a team losing a quarterback as talented as Dak Prescott for nothing in free agency. Maybe Washington comes to mind with Kirk Cousins, and you've seen what happened since then. They've been wandering through the desert, desperate for a quarterback. Hopefully they have Jaden Daniels be that guy, but they've gone from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback. And you have to figure, they probably look back and say, hey, we probably just should have given Kirk Cousins what he wanted.
Now we are back to where we started because a few days ago, Bill, you mentioned that you were writing about this entire situation in Dallas and the possibility that Dak does become a free agent. And you said the Seahawks, among other teams, seem like obvious landing spots for Dak if the Seahawks quarterback situation does disappoint this year. The Seahawks themselves in a very different quarterback situation than Dallas, obviously, but nonetheless interesting. How do you see it?
Yeah, and obviously it depends on what happens with Geno Smith this year. I figure Geno Smith is, the prohibitive favorite to win the job, keep the job all year. Sam Howell will maybe get an opportunity, but a player who, I think probably profiles more as a backup than as a pro at the NFL level. But I really like Geno Smith. I think he is an underrated quarterback. He is super accurate. I believe that he has proven himself over the last 2 seasons to be a very viable NFL starting quarterback. But if you're not getting sort of that premium of having a quarterback on a rookie deal, which Geno is not, I sort of wonder, are you better off paying $35 million a year for Geno, $40 million a year for Geno, or do you want to pay a little more and get a quarterback who does have better numbers, who was second in the MVP balloting last year? It would be atypical for the Seahawks, I think it's fair to say, but when it comes to quarterbacks, teams don't always behave by the rules we would expect. And with the Seahawks, obviously this is a team that, signed Matt Flynn and then gave Russell Wilson the job before Matt Flynn ever even got an opportunity. They traded Russell Wilson and obviously look back and are very happy they did so. I believe that, yes, the Seahawks are not a team that I would expect to spend $60 million on a quarterback, but with quarterback, the rules are different than they are for any other position.
Bill, the question with Dak Prescott has always been kind of like, can he win the big game? Can he cut down on the interceptions? Is it maybe going to come down to maybe him needing a change of scenery? Do you think he can win at the highest level in Dallas? I mean, there's no question about the talent around him, but does it feel like he has the support maybe from the front office there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do. I'm not one who puts a ton of stock into those can they win at the highest level thing, because it seems like a moving the goalpost situation, right? You say, okay, well, Dak has to win the division title. Well, he won the division title. Okay, he has to win a playoff game. He's won a playoff game. He has to beat a real quarterback in a playoff game. He blew out Tom Brady in the postseason a couple of years ago in Tampa Bay. One of the best performances we saw all year for any quarterback from Dak Prescott in that game. I look back at guys like Peyton Manning, where early in his career, there was that rep of he can't win the big one, he can't beat Tom Brady, until he did, and then he won a Super Bowl. John Elway, lost a couple of Super Bowls early in his career, had that rep for a long time, and then won later on in his career. To me, it's not a question of there being something wrong with Dak Prescott or something wrong with the Cowboys. It's just you only get so many shots. They aren't really a great matchup for some more physical teams like the Niners and the Packers. And to me, if you're Dak and you're sitting here over the past couple of years and you thought, hey, maybe I don't have what I need around me, maybe there's not a great enough team around me, well, those guys making $48 million a year, like I said, are the Cowboys really going to be a better team if those guys are making 3 times as much as they're making now? So it's sort of a conundrum where if you're Dak Prescott, you want to get paid and you deserve to get paid, and I think he's a good enough player to get paid and win a Super Bowl. But whether he can do that with the Cowboys, whether he needs to go somewhere else to do that, I think it's a fair and valid question.
Hey, I'm glad that you mentioned that kind of moving of the goalpost when it comes to quarterbacks and whether a guy can ever be great, because sometimes it feels like 2 guys, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, have met expectation or been good enough for people. And I mean, you can throw another, no one's arguing Peyton Manning is or was great, right? Or Aaron Rodgers, even though Aaron Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl to his name. But a lot of the conversation, Bill, just so that you know, that we've been having in Seattle for 2 years with fans, and completely fair, is, can Geno do it? Is Geno enough to elevate you to a Super Bowl team? And you look at the most important position in football and wonder that. That's exactly why we have these conversations about quarterbacks. But, Bill, I look back at Super Bowl winners. I see Patrick Mahomes, Stafford, Brady, Mahomes, Brady, Foles, Brady, Manning, Brady. You got some random guys in there. Joe Flacco in 2012. Obviously, Drew Brees getting a great quarterback. But it feels like there's the reality that a quarterback is hugely important and the most important piece to making you a Super Bowl team. And then the secondary truth, which is even then, only a handful of guys have gotten it done. Is that to you one of the toughest parts about evaluating whether a quarterback can be it for a team?
It is, because it's not a binary thing. And I think too often we talk about it with players as a binary thing. You can have a totally fulfilling career and be a great, truly great quarterback and not win a Super Bowl or not win multiple Super Bowls. And the opposite's true too. You can be pretty good quarterback and get hot like Joe Flacco did for a year and win a Super Bowl. Or you can have some breaks go your way like Eli Manning did in 2007, where I think they recovered 11 of 12 fumbles on offensive defense in that postseason. And then you get the crazy helmet catch, and that helped win the game. And then Eli comes back 4 years later, and maybe there's a little bit of an easier slate when they get past the Packers. I mean, I could sit here and, kind of poke holes in some of these resumes for guys who won once or twice, but the reality is it's not like Eli Manning became a great quarterback because he won a Super Bowl. Eli Manning developed into a fine quarterback. I think if Eli Manning had not won 2 Super Bowls, I don't think we'd be sitting here saying, man, Eli Manning is a no doubt Hall of Famer based on his resume beyond the playoff wins. So to me, I think, it just changes how you have to approach your roster, right? If you have a Patrick Mahomes, well, you can afford to make more mistakes. You can have a wide receiver core that has the worst drop rate in the modern history of football in a single season, like the Chiefs did last year. If you have a Josh Allen, you can afford to make some mistakes. If you have a guy like that, yes, it changes what you have to do, but it's just harder with a Geno Smith. It's harder with an Eli Manning. It's harder with the Joe Flacco. You can still do it. And I don't think we should take away from those players because those teams did it. It just changes. Well, maybe you're spending more on your defense. Maybe you're spending more on your offensive line. Maybe you're not doing as much, you're not relying as much on your passing game. And I think for the Seahawks, as they sort of evolve in the post-Pete era, I think they have to ask themselves, hey, what kind of team do we want to be? Where are we spending our money? What are we focusing on? How are we evolving in any way? Or are we just going to be kind of, with John Schneider still there, kind of, maybe a slightly different version of what we had previously? And I think that's going to be a really fascinating year here in 2024, because I think we're going to get a vision of what John Schneider's team looks like, not just this year, but also now in the years to come as well.
Bill, the Seahawks have an interesting conundrum coming up with DK Metcalf, who will be eligible for an extension here soon. I noticed that you tweeted, I think a couple weeks ago when Justin Jefferson signed his deal with the Vikings, that he'll be making in one season what Marvin Harrison Jr. will be making for the duration of his rookie deal. So, with you having said that, how do you feel about the Seahawks giving another contract extension to DK Metcalf?
I mean, he's a special player. And when it comes to wide receivers, I believe you have to be thoughtful about not just your player, but also the context around them, right? And for the Vikings, not that they would have ever really not signed Justin Jefferson. Maybe they trade him if they really don't like him for some reason, but they're never going to let him leave in free agency. And it makes sense for them to sign him, not only because he's an incredible player, but also because they have J.J. McCarthy on a rookie deal making a fraction of what a typical quarterback makes. And you want to surround your quarterback with talent when that happens. With someone like CeeDee Lamb, it's tougher. So with the Cowboys, do you pay Dak $60 and then CeeDee Lamb $35? That's a more difficult conundrum. I think if you have a rookie quarterback, it's much easier to pay those wide receivers. And so when it comes to DK Metcalf, you can't really knock their production. He's been healthy. He's been available most of his career. He's played really well. He seems like a locker room guy. It doesn't seem like there's any issues there. So you can't really poke holes in DK as a player. I just really think the question is, how do you want to apportion your money, and what do they have a quarterback? If you have a rookie quarterback taking over next year, or someone who's not making even what Geno's going to make this year, I don't think there's really a doubt. I think you surround that guy with talent. You sign DK, you hook up Jackson Smith and Jigba as your number 2 receiver, and he ends up being eligible for an extension a couple of years from now and deserves one. They spent money on Noah Fant this offseason. I think you surround that quarterback with as much as possible. But if you do go out and give Geno Smith a raise, if you do go out and sign Dak, or someone significant at quarterback, if you trade for a Kirk Cousins, that's a different question. I think it's tougher to get that deal done with DK. I still think you do it, but it really changes the sort of flexibility you have and maybe how aggressive you are in making that move versus having a more expensive or less expensive quarterback.
He is Bill Barnwell. Bill, we wish we could ask you a million questions. You are an encyclopedia of knowledge. So fun to talk to. We have to let you go, though. However, I will tell everyone else that if you love what you hear from Bill, unsurprisingly you will, check out the Bill Barnwell Show. Read his latest. This column we talked about Dak is up on ESPN.com right now. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.